So if everybody could mute, that would be useful. Oh, everybody has now. Fantastic. Thank you. Oh, Paul, I can see if you don't mind muting. Just because then that affects the recording. Thank you. So just a couple of practical things before I introduce Cynthia. So we're recording tonight's webinar. And we use it for people who missed the webinar, and we put it on the website for people to access afterwards. So if you don't want to be seen on the video that other people might see, then you can just switch your video off and you'll remain anonymous. So after Cynthia has made her presentation, there'll be an opportunity for questions. And there's two ways you can raise your hand. You can raise your hand like this, which is probably the easiest. But if you want to do it digitally, you go to the chat box, the participants box at the bottom of the screen, and you'll see a button to raise your hand. So, and yeah, I think that's all the practical things. If you have any problems with audio or any kind of technical problems, then you can message me in the chat box at any time, and I'll do my best to sort you out. Okay, so practical things out of the way. I'd like to introduce Cynthia Bampton, who I think everybody knows, more or less everybody here knows. She's the co-founder with her husband Peter Bampton of the Awaken Life Project here in Portugal. And tonight she's going to be speaking on New Year's resolutions still.
Okay, I'm turning my volume back on. Okay, good evening, everyone. It's nice to see you all. Many people that I already know and a couple of new people, so that's great. Let's just start off with a short meditation. So if everybody can just sit up straight and close your eyes. And just take a deep breath in, bringing the air all the way down into your belly, letting the belly expand, and then relaxing as the air leaves the body. So just allow yourself to feel the breath. Feel the air coming in through your nose, expanding, and feel the air as it leaves the body. And just for a moment, realize that breathing is something that we don't normally notice. And the reason we don't notice it is because we don't have to do anything. We don't create breathing. Breathing is just occurring. So allow yourself to be conscious of the gift of breath. If you allow your breath to really expand in your lungs, and then to exhale, you'll notice that the breath can massage the body from the inside out. Just take a moment to enjoy the fact that you are being breathed by a mystery that you know to be yourself, but you can't recognize it with the mind. You can only recognize it with the heart. So if your mind is very busy, it doesn't matter. Just as the body is being breathed, the mind is thinking. There's thought arising in your awareness. Sensation is arising within your awareness. So realize that you are that which is aware of the sounds that you hear, the sensations that you feel, and the thoughts that are arising. So as you meditate, your awareness is just all content and all equal. So a thought has no more importance than the sensation of your body breathing. It's just another object that's arising in your awareness. It doesn't matter if you have pleasant thoughts or unpleasant thoughts. If you feel pain or you feel joy. You might have a preference for one or the other. But as you sit, you can recognize that all of it is arising in your awareness. And how do you know? Because you're aware of it. If you are aware of the thought, you are not that which you think. You are that which is aware. If you are aware of the sensation, you are not the sensation. You are that which is aware. If you have a thought that says, I'm not doing it right, it's no different than a thought that says, I'm the best meditator on the planet. It's just a thought, a very impersonal object that's arising in your awareness. So just take a moment and realize that the body is being breathed and you're aware of that. Thought is arising and you're aware of that. You can hear sounds and you are aware of that. You can feel sensations and you're aware of that. They are all equal, as they are all objects that you are aware of. So allow yourself to relax and not fight with your mind, because you don't like the thoughts that are arising. Don't fight with your body if there's sensations that you don't like. It's the personalization of the content of your awareness that causes you suffering. It's not the content itself. It's the habit of personalizing, of thinking a thought means something about you. Thinking a sensation means something about you. If something means something about you, then you have something to be ashamed of. You have an image that's created that you must uphold. You create a whole world and a whole story through the personalization of thought and feeling. And then you believe that you are that story. But if you're aware of the story, you cannot be the story because you are that which is aware. So just realize this in your own experience. You don't have to believe me. You just look in your own experience and say, yes, actually, I am aware of thought arising. And I'm aware that I think those thoughts mean something. If my mind is busy, the thought may arise that says, I'm not meditating correctly. You're doing it wrong. But if you just let all of those thoughts be just thought, then you can just rest as awareness itself. And the whole show is just arising and falling away in every moment. So watch this movement for yourself. And you can liberate yourself from the habitual personalization, the victimization of thought and feeling. You can do that by being interested in right now. So if you're fighting with your thoughts, and you are aware that you're fighting with your thoughts, you have to ask yourself, who is it that's fighting with the thoughts? If I am aware, is there really someone there fighting with the thought? Or is there just another thought saying I'm fighting with a thought? When really there's no fighting going on. It's just thought after thought after thought. How can you fight with a thought? Is a thought a thing? Is it square? Round? What color is the thought? If you ask yourself these questions, you realize you don't know. So if you don't know what a thought is, why are you so convinced it's important? Maybe it's just another object arising in your awareness. It's arising and falling away. And another one arises and falls away. And you're just resting as awareness, aware of the movement of mind. And you don't have to do anything. And as you do nothing, you may find a deeper dimension of yourself that is beyond thought and beyond feeling and is free from all of it. Not sometime in the future, but right now. So take a few more deep breaths in and feel the breath as it enters the body, and realize you're aware of the breath, you're aware of the body, you're aware of breathing, you're aware of everything. And enjoy the view from awareness itself. So when you're ready, open your eyes. Okay. So here we are in the first webinar of 2019. It's already the 9th of January, which kind of strangely doesn't mean anything because we're just here now. But I wanted to speak a little bit about New Year's resolutions because I think everybody's probably made some. Maybe this year, maybe the last years of your life or your whole life. And I think probably everybody can look at their New Year's resolution history and you might be able to recognize that you might not have been so successful in following through with your New Year's resolutions. So just raise your hand if you've ever made a New Year's resolution and you didn't follow through. Yeah, you got to be truthful. Okay, so have you ever wondered why you never follow through? It's very interesting, right? Because in a certain way, sometimes we do it with our best intentions. But I think what happens a lot of the time, people make a New Year's resolution, and before they're actually finished making it, there's also an understanding and a belief that you know you're not going to follow through. You already know that you're not going to do it. And that's because it's based on history. Because if you say you're going to do something and you continuously not do it, then it creates a cynicism within us that says it's not possible. So it's kind of like you're going through the tradition, but there's really nothing behind it. So again, why are we usually unsuccessful with New Year's resolutions? Well, the way I look at it is fundamentally, if you're making a New Year's resolution, which usually the resolution has something to do with fixing yourself. You want to lose weight, you want to quit smoking, you want to be a better person, whatever it happens to be. It's usually about you, and it's about you having something wrong that needs fixing. So fundamentally, we're coming from a position that who I am is not already okay. And that fundamental position is an egoic position because the deepest dimension of ourselves is already perfectly formed. So like in the meditation, you know, if you really connect it to that you are that which is aware, if you think about it, all of your problems and everything that you don't like has to do with thought. It doesn't have to do with that which is aware. I don't think anybody was sitting in the meditation and saying, yeah, I'm that which is aware. And then you're thinking, yeah, but that which is aware has a problem. So problem really arises from the personalization of thought and feeling. And the idea of a separate self arises from the personalization of a thought and feeling. So it's really the separate self, the identity with the separate self, that is making the New Year's resolution. Isn't that interesting? So now if you think about it, the separate self actually has to have a problem in order to exist. Right? Because if I have a problem, then I have something to get over. If I have something to get over, I get to be the one that gets over the something that I need to get over. And then I get to be the one to tell everybody that I've gotten over the problem that I think I had. So it's kind of an endless feeding of of identity, of a separate identity that's based on the personalization of thought. And if that identity is based on the personalization of thought, and thought is arising and falling away in every moment, then there is nothing solid about that identity. It's really all an illusion that's based on the personalization of thought. So in order for that habit, which is it's an egoic habit to personalize thought and feeling, but we can just talk about thought. So if you want to maintain an egoic identity that's based on something that's impermanent and not real, then you're going to have to do a lot of work to maintain that. So part of that work and part of the way that you can maintain that is you can make a New Year's resolution. And so what you do is you make the New Year's resolution from an identity that thinks it has a problem, but needs a problem in order to actually exist. And so, of course, if you're making a New Year's resolution and you know you're not going to follow through with that New Year's resolution, then you continue to have a problem, and you can continue to be cynical, you can continue to be upset, you can continue to feel bad about yourself, yada, yada, yada. It can just go on and on and on. And then you just give up sometime in the middle of the year or sometime along around January 2nd after your New Year's resolution. And then you can feel bad about yourself. And then the egoic identity is completely intact. You see, you're creating it through the idea that you have a problem. So the New Year's resolutions never work because from an egoic point of view, there's no incentive to follow through with a New Year's resolution. Absolutely none. Because it's based on the fact that you are not already complete. Okay? Everybody with me so far? Okay, now some of you might be saying, yeah, but there are things that I need to improve. There's things that I do that are not correct action for this world. And there's things that I want to change. And yes, we all have things that we need to improve and change. But can we look at that as a process of purification of egoic habits and look at that from the point of view of prior freedom, of who you already are? So from an absolute point of view, we are always already free. And then we have some bad habits like personalizing thought and creating egoic identities that we need to purify and we need to change. But we're changing the habit. We're not changing the self. That's the difference. The self is always the self. The self is awareness. The self is consciousness. The self is spirit. The self is God. It's always there. It never changes. So you're not changing who you are at the deepest level. So if you are making a change, it means that you are changing your habit of identification with thought and feeling. That's what you're changing. And when you change your habit of thought and feeling, your personalization of thought and feeling, when you change that habit, you see you're changing your point of view of who you actually believe yourself to be. So there's no self that's actually changing. The only thing that's changing is the habitual grasping and personalization of thought. So all you're changing is a habit. There is no self called Nina, called Paul, called Jim. There is no self that's separate that needs change. It's a habit that needs to change. And that's a big difference. Do you recognize the difference between changing a habit and thinking you have a solid structure called you that's all messed up that you need to change? There's a big difference. So New Year's resolutions also are very much about you as a separate I most of the time. So I just did a New Year's retreat, and some of you were on it. And instead of making New Year's resolutions and building up on that retreat, is we made offerings. Everybody made offerings for the 7 days of the retreat. And an offering was basically a surrendering of one's egoic position. And then on New Year's Eve, instead of thinking about what I need to do to change, what everyone did is we looked and we said, what can we do to give more love and more consciousness through my own actions for the next year? So it's a very, very different orientation. And it was very magical, and it was very impersonal, and it was completely full of joy. And the connection between everyone was just vibrating at a very high level, because there was no imposition of, I have a problem and now I'm going to fix it. So that's why New Year's resolutions don't work. That's why they're a waste of time. They're actually an egoic activity if you make a resolution from the point of view of separation. But if you want to purify your habits and you make a New Year's resolution from that point of view, you see, then you're standing on ground that's real instead of the illusion of the separate I. And when you stand on that ground that's real and you make a resolution to purify yourself, what that actually is, it's an act of devotion. It's an act of surrender. And then it becomes a beautiful expression of awareness or consciousness itself coming through the human being. So again, going back to this retreat, where it was a retreat of 7 days of people doing devotional practices. And devotional practices are very practical. Devotional practice for the retreat, one of them was that every time we finished a session of meditation, everyone would fold their blankets and fix their space, their meditation space, with complete consciousness and devotion. And every time we walked back into the meditation hall, it was completely clean and free of ego because of the devotion. Devotion also happened on New Year's Day, where we cleaned the meditation room in silence, and everybody did it. And it was just cleaning. All we were doing was cleaning. It wasn't anything deep and spiritual entertainment. It was just cleaning. But everybody did it with devotion. And when we finished and we sat down, the whole room was vibrating and shining. So devotion is a very, very practical thing. And what it is, it's actually being present. It's being present with what you're doing. It's being present with who you're with. It's taking your attention off your own thoughts. It's taking your attention off the habit of personalizing thought. It's bringing your attention just back to who you're with, what you're doing, being conscious, being present. And when you do that, that is an act of devotion, because you're taking your attention off the habit of the separate I. And you're bringing it back to, again, that which is real. And you can call it whatever you want. You're not bringing your attention back to a thing. You're taking your attention off objects, and then you're just left with, with consciousness itself. So my experience actually in this retreat was realizing that watching human beings bow down in devotion to that which is real in their own way, but with sincerity and intention, is the most beautiful, amazing thing that I've ever seen. And these were people with all different levels of experience. But everybody came in from the very first moment with sincerity and integrity. And sometimes people didn't even know what they were, when they were making offerings, they were just confused on what they were offering. But the mere fact of offering and making an attempt to offer, and even the attempt to offer your confusion, is an act of devotion. You see, we have so many ideas about about doing it perfectly that we miss actually what we can do in each moment. Because if you're willing to give up your confusion and just be interested and going, wow, I'm really confused, but with a big question mark and with interest, that's very different than I'm confused. Oh my God, I'm so horrible. I'm confused. I'm not doing it right. I can't open my mouth until I'm clear. Instead of just maybe, wow, I'm confused. With a joyous, open heart going, wow, okay. But see, then you're open to that questioning. And when you're open to questioning, you're open to much more than the question. You're open to that which is beyond, to the deepest dimension of who you are. So that's really what I want to say and bring tonight to all of you, because we can make this year of 2019, we can make this year of giving and a year of devotion, instead of a year of seeking for that which we already are, or trying to get over a separate I that doesn't exist, which basically ends up in not giving and not being in an act of devotion. It's really that simple. And it's so simple that it's everybody can do it if you want to. It's just a case of deciding what you want and then making the effort to do it. Even if you don't know how to do it. But if you're just willing, it doesn't even matter if you know how to do it, because if you're willing, you'll find your way. You'll always find your way if you're willing. And sometimes that means you ask for help. Sometimes that means you get on a webinar. Sometimes it means you just sit there and you don't know what to do. And I'm sure everybody on this webinar has been in a place where you were confused and you didn't know what to do and you were driving yourself crazy trying to figure it out. And in the end, you got so frustrated, you just gave up. And then something came out of left field and it's like, oh, right. So I think everybody on this webinar has had that experience. And so that experience is an important experience, because it tells you, as soon as you surrender that there's a problem with confusion or not knowing, as soon as you surrender that idea and you're just interested, then you're present with a cosmic intelligence that actually can bring you everything you need in order to wake up from the illusion of the separate I. And not only wake up from it, but actually live it. But this is not something you're going to get by making a resolution and thinking it's a one-time shot. It's basically the devotion or the resolution in every moment to bow down and say, okay, here I am. I'm ready to respond. I'm ready to serve. I'm ready to not know. I'm ready to back up my actions. I'm ready. But it doesn't look a particular way all the time, but it's always coming from a motivation of the willingness to serve and the willingness to be and to be present, and to not be infatuated with your narcissistic relationship to your thoughts and feelings. So why don't we just take a minute to sit and let some of that sink in. So if you want to just sit up straight again and close your eyes and just breathe, and don't try to figure anything out. Just let everything cook. And when you're ready, you can just open your eyes. Okay. So if anybody has any comments or any questions. Hi, Rick.
Hi, Cynthia, and hi, everyone.
Hi.
And I always get so lit up when you speak and share every one of your webinars, and I'm very lit up now again. And I just feel the space where you're pointing to deeply here, and it's very interesting because you talked about this. What I feel is really miraculously a space of uncertainty in a way that, and the egoic way of life, how I see it is often I create a problem so that I have a certain thing that I have to fix and go, and it's like trying to be certain. And I go toward a problem, create another problem, go to that problem, fixing. Here, though, it's, and that from a sense of lack. And here, though, there's a sense of abundance.
Mm.
And what I find is there's a lot of uncertainty then of the direction, but yet there's a guiding thing of this wonderful, beautiful fullness of life that I feel is still directing me in a way. There's a direction that it wants to, what's guiding is just caring and loving in this timeless present moment of what's needed.
Mm.
But it's not from a sense of lack, like you're pointing to, or anything missing.
You want to know what's kind of interesting about what you just said, Rick, is that if there's a sense of lack, there's a sense of certainty. And when there's abundance, where nothing is missing, there's insecurity. Isn't that
Yes.
interesting?
Yeah, but it's a funny insecurity because it's a welcomed almost insecurity in a way. It's a aliveness. I remember one time you said in here where the action is, and that's where it feels like. It's where the action is, in there, in that availability. And I don't know. I don't know what's next, but there's something I feel that's always guiding in a way, but I don't know what that, I don't have a specific problem wrong with me to fix. That's not there at all.
Right.
Yeah.
So what are you left, have you ever thought about what would you do with all your time if you weren't spending all your time getting over yourself?
It's funny because that's, yeah, I'm trying to feel in that question. If I just feel there's a drawing. I feel like life is drawing you to where to go almost. You feel a pull, and there's so many possibilities out there that if I'm open and available to them, I could go here, I could go there, because there's always something to feel like it's there to draw me toward.
Yeah, and the thing.
And it's not a withdrawing; it's a drawing toward rather than a withdrawing.
Right, but also if you're coming from this, if you're coming from this place of nothing missing or no lack, then when you do something and you're drawn towards something, you're drawn toward it for the sake of what you're doing, or for the sake of what you're drawn toward, opposed to this for the sake of trying to be somebody, or create something, or be the one with the problem, or be the one that needs to do something. So all roads really end in the fact that if you're drawn to something just for the sake of doing it, which is also a devotional act, because you get nothing out of it. You as a separate I gets absolutely nothing out of it. Why? Because you don't exist as a separate I. And when you turn yourself and you're just willing to to do for the sake of doing, and you're drawn toward it. But see, it's, you don't even care if there's that many choices of what you're drawn for, because you're not trying to fill any hole or anything that's missing. So everything that you do is full in and of
Yeah.
itself, because nothing is missing. If nothing is missing, it's already full.
And your word devotion just seems to be so true to it, because it's just a devotion to something that's very present and alive. And it just feels like it's a continuing devotion to this.
Right.
And like you're saying, what I feel is it doesn't feel, it's just one honoring. It's an honoring, it feels like.
And then when you think about it, what are you honoring?
All that comes to me when you ask that is this sort of an honoring. It feels like a mystery, but yet it's an honoring still of, I want to say, a passion for life, honoring. It's like honoring a care that wants to be expressed, and honoring a love that wants to be expressed.
Mm-hmm. And maybe what you're honoring is you're honoring that which is true and real.
Yes. Yeah. Something
Yeah,
right,
and then, as you
right
say,
in the
then there
heart.
is a care that wants to be expressed.
Yeah.
But the one thing you want to be careful about is not separating yourself from that which you're honoring. So, for example, if you were going to do some kind of bowing practice and you were bowing down, people will bow down to pick a heart connection to. They might bow down just to consciousness itself as themselves. But I think the important thing is when you bow down, there's a recognition that you're not bowing down to a thing that's outside of yourself. It's a bowing down to a recognition of the source of all of life, including you. And in that, you see, there's no separate I that's getting in the way. There's nobody that's really trying to get anything from that action of devotion.
Yeah. It's not even interested in getting. It doesn't. That doesn't seem to make sense from here. It's just just a giving, but not with a purpose of giving, and not of giving for a reason. It feels like what you're saying and what I'm feeling now is just a giving for the sake of giving. That seems the only thing to be true.
Right. And if you think about it, is there anything else? Is there anything else to do?
Yeah. I laugh at that because it just sort of, there's nothing. That's what's so funny. There's nothing else to do except to be this giving process. I don't know what it is.
That's a nice way. But then you can go back, some of the examples I gave about the retreat, because you see, you don't just turn into like a blob of bliss that doesn't do anything,
Yeah.
Because, like the examples I gave from the retreat, we were cleaning, we were folding blankets, we were doing things. And so can we actually give for the sake of giving in your actions, on how you move, what you do, how you interact with people? It's really about that. It's about being present with whatever it is that you're doing, whether you're washing the dishes or you're talking to someone. And there's all simple ways that we can give more just for the sake of giving, not because we're trying to get anything. But we can do that all the time. It's very simple. It's not necessarily all that flashy.
Yeah, and the other piece of what comes up for me right now when you're saying this is, and I always find this curious, the curiosity that's always here, that it's even like anything is arising in me that feels out of balance, or out of whack, or challenging. It's giving into that too, and giving that over, and not, it's not ignoring anything. It's not,
Yeah.
it's not pretending nothing's not here. It's even giving to that. That's what's rising now, and it's want to be seen. It wants to be looked at. It wants to be give over to the space in a way. I feel given to the space in which I am, if that's what's arising.
Yeah, and another way to say that, to be present or to give to whatever's arising, is to be willing to fully feel what's happening. Because a lot of the time when we have feelings that we don't like, we push them away. But can we just fully feel the human experience of fear or sadness or pain or joy or happiness? Can we fully feel those without personalizing it? And
Yeah.
yet I am personally fully feeling the human condition, but I'm not making the human condition into my personal problem.
Yeah. It's like, it doesn't really mean anything about me, but it's in this now moment, it's arising, and I'm curious, and it's being seen, talked about, discussed as it's here. But it's like you said, it's coming from it feels like it's coming from a not identification with that. It doesn't mean anything about me. There's still this
Right.
tremendous curiosity about it that wants to see through it, bring awareness to it, and honor this kind of, this always wanting to see, I guess, in a way, it feels to me.
Yeah,
Always wanting to see more.
Yeah, and that understanding, and see, it's important that understanding is not based on any particular feeling, because if you realize that there's only giving, there's nothing else to do, there's nothing missing, you understand that you are that which is aware, you are not the content of your mind. You see, then because there's going to be times you don't feel like giving, there's going to be times that you don't feel like being present, there's going to be times that maybe you're just completely scared and you're on the edge of freaking out. Okay, so then what are you going to do? Are you going to just realize that actually that is content arising within your awareness? Or are you going to personalize it and make it into a problem? But this is one thing I didn't mention, and it's really important because there's a lot of people on the call that have heard me speak a lot. You have to be willing to feel fully what is happening, and when you fully feel what's happening, you're present. And when you're present, you recognize that which you thought was the thing you wanted to get away from. You recognize that as a modification of consciousness itself.
Yeah.
You see, because if you avoid it, if you don't want to feel it and you want to personalize it, because when we personalize a feeling, if you have fear and you personalize it, you're not feeling it, you're avoiding it. And if you're avoiding the fear, you're creating the separate self, because of the personalization. But what you're really avoiding is you're avoiding the truth, that what you're actually looking at is a modification of God that's telling you, don't worry about it. It's all fine. You don't need to divide off from me because I am you.
Yeah. It's not really threatening anything. It's just part of.
It's threatening your idea of a separate I. That's what it's threatening. That's the only thing. And
go ahead. Sorry.
No, and if you want to be free of that illusion of that identity, then you want that separate I. You want that identity to be threatened, right?
Yeah.
Because everybody says they want to be free.
Something even to protect myself from this. I'm frightened of what's happening, and it's a very different, I feel there's a very different movement of of the movement of freedom or whatever, where it's all embraced, and it doesn't matter what's arising. It's really ultimately it's just all part of this one unfolding.
Yeah, that's true. But you have to recognize that it all comes down to the personalization of thought and feeling. Because if you personalize thought and feeling, and then you create an illusion of a separate I, and that separate I is threatened, then you are going to feel like you're being killed, you're being attacked, you're being, abused by someone. You're going to feel all those things. But then if you actually want to be liberated in those moments where even maybe you do personalize thought and you find yourself in this contracted state of defense, then if you've gone far enough with this, and you don't have to go that far in order to recognize a contraction. I think everybody can recognize that without too much spiritual understanding. You just know, like, ugh. And if you know that, then you know that you're cutting yourself off from something, and you just need to stop, and you need to breathe, and you need to go, okay, what's really going on here? Because you're not always going to feel connected. And so it's not about feeling anything. It's about understanding. And so it's really important, as people have, spiritual experiences or meditation experiences, or even in nature, whatever it happens to be, that you're more interested in what do I understand from this experience than you are in how it feels. Because the feeling is going to change, because it's just like thought. Have you ever noticed thought and feeling just are changing constantly? But understanding comes from resting in that which is true and real. And that understanding doesn't change. It deepens, but it puts you in a place where you're resting in who you actually already are, and that doesn't change. And that's dependable, and that's where that's where you're deeply relaxed. But that's where the habit of ego and the egoic identity is completely insecure and threatened. Because it doesn't exist. It never exists. So anybody that thinks that they have a problem to get over, it's based on the personalization of thought. It doesn't exist. You do not have a big problem to get over. You have a process of purification that needs to take place, but that process of purification is just to purify your relationship to thought and feeling. Isn't it exciting? Because it's doable. Everybody can do it. Everybody can bow down and give up their arrogance, give up their habit of problem. Everybody can do it. Every moment. If you want to do it, you can do it. It might not be easy. You might not recognize that, you might be unconscious of your habit, but as soon as you become conscious of it, you are conscious of it. Yeah. And then you can say, oh, look at that, I'm making a problem. And what happens when I make a problem? Like you said, you get to be the one that solves the problem, or you get to be the one that blames other people for making your problem. You get to be somebody. That's the whole point. Instead of being nobody separate. Yes. The simplicity actually just blows your mind. I mean, it blows my mind. I don't know what it's doing to the guys. Yes. I'm having a good time. Yeah, so it makes sense though, right, Rick?
Oh yeah. And it just, this phrase, there's never a better moment than right now to recognize this. And this is the perfect moment to always be in devotion, in purifying, in whatever's happening. It's just, there's no better time right now to do it. The only time to do it is right now. And
yeah, but it's the only time to do it is right now, because really there is only now. So even the idea of changing in the future doesn't make any sense, because all change of habit is going to take place now. It's not going to take place in something called tomorrow.
Yeah.
Because
That was the
tomorrow
thing
will
that's
be
coming to me
now.
with the 3-year resolutions. Yeah. So like what's something where I'm going to try to get to, and it's almost like, no, it's, you know, it's not a time thing. The recognition is always timeless. It feels to me when you see it. I mean, I could be so in ego, and then it's like that. And it's like, oh my God, someone hit me, and it's all gone. It's just all gone. Everything
Well,
I was doing.
then you have to ask yourself, if it's all gone when something hits you, then how real was it in the first place?
Yeah. Yeah. It was just made up. It was just self-created. It feels like it was just a,
But it is self-created. It's by the personalization of thought and
yeah.
feeling. It's you, whoever you are in there, uh, you know, making that choice. You know, and a lot of the time the choice is unconscious. So that's what we're trying to do, is we're trying to become conscious of this habit and this movement of grasping. And that's why the meditation is so important, because if you just stop, you start to recognize that habit and movement of personalizing thought. It's just like what I said in the meditation. You know, all of a sudden you feel like you're fighting with your mind, or you're fighting with thought, and you're convinced you are fighting with thought. Now, where
Mm,
is that actually taking place? Are
mm.
you like a little somebody in there in your mind fighting with your thoughts, and, you know, duking it out with your thoughts? I mean, what's really going on there? If you think about it, it's nuts. So who is the I that's fighting with the thought, and what is the thought that the I that doesn't exist is actually fighting with?
Yes.
Very interesting, right? But we
Yeah.
don't think about this. We just are so habitually believing that, oh my God, I feel bad. I did something. Oh, and God, I don't even know what, but it's gross.
Yeah. It feels very heavy. Very, yeah.
Yeah, and I think heavy is a good word, because if anybody looks at when you're contracted and you're basically, you have personalized something and the contraction, and you are getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, and you're more unhappy and suffocated, and you're suffering. You know, if you look at that whole movement, and then in that moment you recognize the personalization of your experience in that moment, you can just go, wow, I'm aware of this contraction. So I am not that. And if you do that, you will have space to take a breath, and then you'll recognize what Rick just said. That contraction will start to dissolve. But as long as you believe it and you continue to personalize it, it will be true to you in that moment. And you will cause yourself suffering, and you will cause other people suffering.
Mm.
Because when we're contracted, we want other people to join our contraction party.
Yeah. Oh,
You know,
true.
it's like,
Yeah.
come in here with me. But we're doing it to ourselves. We can't turn around and point the finger at anybody else, because no matter what anybody does to me, I always have a choice on how I relate to it. Isn't that
Yeah.
liberating? That nobody has your freedom in their hands.
Yeah.
So cool. So do you have a New Year's resolution, Rick?
I didn't, funny reason, I didn't really make any. I just sort of, I just felt, I don't know, when you were saying this, I didn't know why I didn't want to make any, and I didn't. And I felt funny making something. And
Yeah.
what I'm just feeling right now is just this really present, being really present all the time, really resting in this, in now, and seeing this movement. I feel like I've been seeing this personalization much deeper than I ever have, and
Mm-hmm.
identification, and just, I guess that's my only resolution, to continue to try to see this when it's more and more, I guess, see when it's
No,
happening, and
no,
relax.
but you know, don't do that, because
No.
you already know enough about that. You've already seen enough. So the fact, if you want to see more, you see, that's all about you wanting to see more.
Yeah, yeah, you're so right. You're exactly right. Yes, yes,
Okay,
yes.
so why don't you do this? If you think about what you can give for 2019, why don't you give up the Rick Enlightenment Project?
Mm. Wow.
You see, and then you're left with nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, but that means that every time you're trying to figure something out, thinking you have to go deeper, that is the distraction. You just turn and you bow down to nothing. And you don't have to figure it out. You don't have to figure anything out.
Yes,
just turn away from the habit. So, and if you really do it, Rick, you're going to find something, amazing is going to come to the forefront.
No, I appreciate that, because I feel that's just being very present with that, giving that up, just being present now. Yeah.
Well, just forget about, you don't even have to, see, forget about the movement of wanting to be present. Forget about all of that. Just give up the whole project. Give up the whole thing. And that seems counter, because it's like, well, yeah, but then, what's going to happen? And so obviously I wouldn't say this to somebody who is just starting on this path, but Rick is not just starting on this path, and I know him a bit, so I can say this. We had another guy on the retreat, Albert, and he was on the 10-day retreat too. And it was so funny because he was on a webinar a while ago, and he actually had a book called the Albert Enlightenment Project or something. And he would put all his notes and stuff into it. And then I was talking or something, and he started to cross off Albert off of his book. And, and it's funny because he's from New York, and he's about the same age as you. And you guys both have a lot of passion, but you got to give up the project.
Yeah, because what I feel what you're pointing to right now is a sense of, if there's a project to do, it's almost like there's a belief that something's lacking again. There's something missing.
Okay, so right now you're doing it.
Yeah. Well, okay.
You don't need to figure anything out anymore.
Yeah.
You don't need to do that.
Okay.
So I gave 4 rules on the retreat. So everybody can do these rules for the rest of your life if you want to, but you can start off with today or tomorrow. Okay. So don't make a problem out of anything. Don't try to fix anything. Don't try to figure anything out. And don't make anything mean anything about you. Okay, so you can do all 4, but they're all kind of the same, but just pick the one that, strikes your fancy and just do it. And catch yourself of how often you make a problem, how often you're trying to fix something, how often you're trying to figure something out. And you can even try to figure out spiritual things, but if you're trying to figure it out, it can very easily, you can lose that sense of, it can become, it can actually, the ego can come in and take over the project, even if, take over the Enlightenment Project, because time is put into the picture. And when time is put into the picture, then the truth that freedom is here and now is lost. And that's a movement away from what's. So everything you were saying is true, Rick, but just don't be so fascinated with your own experience. Yeah. And you don't need to even know.
I love those 4 things, and thank you. Yeah.
Well, cool. Give them a go, and then next month, come on and tell me how it goes. Unless you want, you can send me an email in between times.
All right, we'll do.
I was on a call today with a bunch of women, and one of the women, she's doing a practice of being present, and so she started to set her phone an alarm for every hour, so it would remind her. And I was like, why don't you set it for every 15 minutes? Because we need to be reminded, and we need to be reminded to do these 4 things I just mentioned, or just one of them, because we're so habitually not doing that. We're so habitually making a problem. We're so habitually identifying with thought. We're trying to fix things that don't need to be fixed, which is just a distraction away from resting in that which is already fine without you having to fix it.
Yeah, yes, very cool. Yeah. I gotta feel how
now you're on the spot.
Huh?
Yeah. But now you're on the spot because you're having to do the rule right now.
No, it's exciting because I really feel what you're pointing to.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, really good. But
Yeah,
really do it, because you're going to have to be very vigilant. And other people on this call, it's all the same. So I'm just talking to Rick now. But you see, there's such a strong habit to keep the Enlightenment project going, instead of realizing there is no Albert, there is no Rick, there is no Carol, there is nobody keeping an Enlightenment project going.
Yeah.
So drop the project.
Thank you. That's really cool. I love it.
Cool. All right, good. Okay. Yeah, everybody else is like, oh, I'm afraid to open my mouth now. But don't be afraid, because if you're afraid, we know what that is. Avoidance. Hi, Manuela. It's nice to see you. She's like, how do I unmute myself? I don't know what's happening. Anyway, I just wanted to say hi. I'm not putting you on the spot unless you want to say something. I think her connection must be a little bit weird. No, she's unmuted. Anyway, okay, I think there's something wrong with the connection. Okay, anybody? How's everybody doing? Is everybody looking forward to 2019? It's kind of a trick question now, isn't it? It's nice to see you, Rosella.
Nice to see you too.
Did it make sense what I was saying?
Yeah, totally. But I actually didn't understood the last question about the 2019.
Oh, just because I was saying, is everyone excited about 2019? But I've been talking a lot about being here now and in the present. So it was kind of like asking if you were interested in the future.
Okay.
Of what was going to happen later. So it was kind of a trick question. I didn't mean it that way. It just kind of came out. So don't worry about it.
Okay.
Who? Jim, where are you? Hi, Jim.
Hi, Cynthia. Well, I'm Rick. I've got a 40-year Gym Enlightenment program going on, and I'm what I think I'm really appreciating. I mean, I have all long history of conversations in the head that will align with what we're speaking about, and I think for me, something that you brought up is this this willingness to feel this immense insecurity, and it seems at those moments when I'm like standing in the most present sense of who I am in the immediacy of now, I passed through this immense feeling of just almost dread and wanting to contract back into some idea about enlightenment or this or that or the other thing. So I think just in pointing to it, it feels like a real opening up of the emotional body and the heart, and just saying yes, okay, feel insecure, take that step, have courage. So that's kind of what I feel, and it's something that doesn't go away. And I've had periods where it's really got stirred up, and then it just explodes, and there's this sense of just standing in something miraculous. And one of the ways of holding this that we're looking at with Jeff Carrera and Craig Hamilton is this ability to be consciously content. to choose to be consciously content with whatever's going on, whether it be feelings or your discontent, whatever it happens to be, you can just allow it. And that would certainly have to do with feeling. When the feeling comes up, you allow it. And what else is there to do but open yourself, open your heart, open your being up to it? And I think one of the comments that he made about that movement is, what better way to show the infinite or the divine that you've been given everything? There's nothing that you need. Everything is here. You've been given everything. And I recognize that. And I have recognized, and it's been given to me a number of times, yet there is this insecurity and this wanting to grab onto some sense of something I can hold on to that's going to make me feel egoically secure. And it's just not going to happen. So that's kind of what I'm left with and what I'm present to right now. And I'm always in a great deal of gratitude.
You know, also those moments of intense insecurity that you're talking about, you see, that's also when you said you've been given lots, you know, moments of I don't know what exactly the words you use, but moments of seeing through and resting in something. But when you've got this intense insecurity, those are the moments of actual real transformation.
Yes.
Because if you can just not move,
yes,
and not turn away and fully feel that, and like I said, not personalize it, see it as the human condition and an egoic habit. If you can do that in that moment, you see the divinity of that intensity that's bringing you to the point where you're willing not to move.
Yes, I agree. And I can feel it right now. It's just a willingness to stand.
Yeah.
Embrace it. Embrace whatever. We have an inclusivity. We have all these definitions, and this certainly falls into the category of the vulnerability to the heart to embrace the totality of existence, whatever happens to be there. And that heart to embrace is what I can feel is drawing me now. And what's drawing maybe all of us let go and step into that, have the courage to embrace and feel to the depth of who you are. And egoically, there's a real reticence to allowing that. And at the same time, I can feel a more open willingness to step into that as it arises. And like you said, just embrace it, step back, don't push it away. And if you're pushing it away, notice that you're pushing it away and let that go. And really, I think one of the things that speaks to me in those moments is prayer. Just help me stay present, give me the courage, whatever it takes. I'm yours.
Right.
And just kind of like step into that. So I think prayer seems to have a very viable, energetic feel in that movement towards depth.
Yeah, I totally agree. One thing we were doing on the retreat, and it started to happen, it kind of started in the first night, is just when, the movement of saying, I'm available, and putting your hands up and saying, I'm available, and opposed to being contracted. And a lot of the time what we did, and I think people should be open to doing this, because I think as Westerners, we're not really that good at devotional gestures or prayer. And so what we would do is we'd say, I'm available, and then we'd put our hands on our heart and we'd say, I'm available. Then we'd bring our hands together, put our head down and say, I'm available. And, if you just say the words, I'm available, I'm available, I'm available, it doesn't have the same power as when you do something with the body that is out of your comfort zone or out of your norm. And that breaks something also in the human being. And I think when people do that, I know it's true for myself, when I do those kind of devotional practices regularly, which I do, it breaks something in me that is just there because I'm part of a postmodern Western society. And it's just not cool to do that kind of stuff. So it breaks something, this act of prayer and devotion, however you want to look at it.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Okay, I think we're coming to the end of the evening. Does anybody have anything that they want to to say? We have a few more minutes. Did you guys get what I was saying about New Year's resolutions being kind of coming from a place of lack and ego? Yeah? It's kind of an interesting way to look at it, to see why they didn't work, instead of feeling like you're just bad because you've never done them. You know, it's kind of like setting yourself up for failure unconsciously. And so now you can be conscious of it, and you don't have to feel bad about however many New Year's resolutions you've made. And just because it's the 9th of January doesn't mean you can't, you know, devote yourself to doing something very, you know, specific on how you can give in this year. I mean, what I did on the retreat, my giving for 2019 was my mother's 95, and she never pushes anything on me. She never, you know, she never feels needy or anything like that. And I call her, you know, once a month or whatever. She knows I'm busy and blah blah. But so what I wanted to do is I wanted to call her twice a week. That was what I want to do, because it just makes her happy, and it's something I can give. So why not give it? So that it's just as simple as that. It doesn't have to be I'm going to change the world or anything like that. You just do something, and everybody maybe has that in your heart where there's something that calls you just to do. There's someone maybe to reach out to. So if that's in your, you know, if that is what you, if there's somebody there or something there that you can do and you can give, then think about giving it. And keep it simple and follow through, because, you know, anybody can have lots of spiritual experiences. Some people have them very easily, some people it's a little bit harder, but it doesn't matter how many experiences you have. It only matters what kind of understanding you've gained from those experiences, and through that understanding, if you followed it up with action. Because if you don't follow it up with action, it doesn't stick, and you'll just be looking for the next experience, which is just egoic. It's kind of like God's already given you everything and you didn't want to do it, and so then you ask for more. Okay, why don't we just sit for a minute or two, and then we can call it a night for this month. So just open your eyes. And if you feel comfortable, I want you to bring your hands up. And you're going to say, I'm available. So go ahead and do it. Open your eyes if you feel like you want to. And you say, I'm available. You bring your hands to your heart. And you say, I'm available. You bring your hands together with your head down. And you say, I'm available. Okay. So did you have any, you didn't have any announcements or anything, do you?
Just the next one, and I'll send an email out tomorrow with donation details.
Okay, do you want to say?
So I'll send out an email tomorrow with the recording of this and the details of the next webinar, which is February the 6th. And also Cynthia runs these webinars by donation, so I'll send you details of how to make a donation if you wish to. Okay, till next month.
Okay, so thanks everybody. It's very nice to see you. And yeah, bring your friends, the more the merrier.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye,
Thank
Sonia.
you.
Bye,
Bye.
Nina.
Bye.
Ciao. Thank you.
Bye.
Ciao.
Ciao.
Bye.
Nina, you look like you have Christmas lights over your head.
I do, but they're here all year round. And I got a fire going too.
I saw that, yeah. Okay, bye everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Good night. Have a good sleep. Hey, Katrin.
Hey.
Ciao, I'm leaving.